Let's go. Let's go. January 8th, 9:48 a.m. District Court Defendant Lobby Number 1. Good morning, Mr. Wright. Good morning, Maggie. So, what do you think is going to happen today, sir? Yesterday's session didn't go so well, and then ended on a giant mystery. That's true. And we still haven't solved a single part of it yet. You okay, Nick? Huh? Yeah. Of course. I saw that little flash of doubt in your eyes. No, that wasn't doubt. That was, determination. Why don't I believe you? It's nearly time, Maggie. You'd better get going to the defendant's seat. I'm taking these glasses off. Roger, don't let me down, Mr. Wright. I'm counting on you. Hey, pal! Hey, Detective Gumshoe. Quit stressing Maggie out. She doesn't need it. How did you know she was stressed? I was watching through the doorway. Oh. You look like you lost the case already. Show a bit of confidence, will you, pal? Here, maybe this'll help. Huh? Have you taken up aromatherapy too? Not in a million years, pal. Don't tell me that you don't remember this thing. Huh, come to think of it, that doesn't look like one of those aromatherapy bottles. This is the small bottle that turned up in Trebian Kitchen a couple of days ago. Wow, look at all these little bottles. Oh, they're aromatherapy oils. He's got so many. They're overflowing onto the floor.
Hey, wait a minute. There's one bottle that's different from all the others.
Well, what do you know? And it doesn't have a label either. And it doesn't smell. We finally got the analysis results back from the lab. So, what is it? Is it the poison? I'm afraid not, pal. It's medication. Medication? Yeah, for ears. Topical use only, apparently. For ears? You mean... Yeah, it's the medication that Glenn Elg was using from his ruptured eardrum. What was Glenn Elg's ear medication doing in the kitchen? Small bottle refiled into the court record. What about the unidentified fingerprints? Anything on that? Someone screwed up, so they only had time to analyze the contents of the bottle. Another hour, and they might have gotten something on the prints, but that's gonna weaken its impact as a piece of evidence. Okay, pal, this is it. Make sure your defense is impregnable today. Got it? Today's trial. I'm gonna expose that guy for what he's done. Or my name isn't Phoenix Wright. 10 a.m. District Courtroom number 4.
Court is now in session for the trial of Maggie Bird.
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
Ready and waiting as always, Your Honor. Very good. Then we'll get this underway at once. Yesterday we heard the testimony of Mr. Victor Godot. He claims to have witnessed the defendant putting a powder into the victim's coffee. However, the witness's testimony was plagued with a number of problems. The mark on the rim of the cup shows that the victim drank from it with his right hand. But according to the old man's testimony, he picked it up with his left. Thank you, Mr. Godot. Furthermore, according to the witness's account, the victim was listening to the radio with an earpiece in his left ear. Yet, the victim's left eardrum was ruptured, which made him effectively deaf in that ear.
It's amazing how many contradictions a single case can have, huh, Nick?
Allow me to enlighten you, Your Honor. The world, you see, keeps turning. We must turn with it. You lost me already, Mr. Godot. Don't let the mysteries of yesterday mystify you today. Only losers think like that. You've got to change with the times. That's one of my rules. Are you implying that you've resolved these contradictions? You know the answers to these riddles? The old guy wasn't throwing seed in here. He was throwing us off the scent. And today I'll prove it. Oh. Very well. Let the first witness take the stand. And you are?
Oh, bonjour, everyone. I am Jean Armstrong, the owner and head chef of La Très Bien Restaurant. Enchanté. Look at his booty.
Forgive me for asking, witness, but are you a woman?
Ooh la la, monsieur. As you can see, I am le pert and perky gentleman, no?
On the day of the incident, you were in Trebien's kitchen. Isn't that right?
Oui, you, monsieur. With you, monsieur. Everything feels right. Wow, he's totally unfazed. Doesn't anything intimidate this guy?
Very well. Your testimony, please, witness. Please tell the court what happened the day at Trebien.
Oh oui, volontiers. At Très Bien. When it all happened, there were 2 customers in my restaurant. I remember I was experimenting with some new art decor that day. Like having a large mirror between the tables, for example. A large mirror between tables? Hold on a second, that changes a lot. Oui, perhaps that is what la man was looking at. Le cup, la earpiece, and la glasses. He would have seen him in everything in reverse, no? Man, he's already just diving in to try and legitimize that guy's, you know. Mirror? Oui, un grand mirror. La most enormous mirror.
And suddenly the mystery disappears. Like I said, the world keeps on turning. So roll with it. That would explain the coffee cup and the earpiece conundrum. The mirror would have made everything appear back to front.
What the heck? It's way too early in the morning for this to be happening to me.
Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
When it all happened, there were just 2 customers in my restaurant. Okay, who? Tell me more. And who were the 2 customers exactly? Of course, the young man who died, and the other not-so-young man.
You are referring to yesterday's witness, I presume?
What about the other man Maggie says she saw at the table? Something tells me Mr. Armstrong isn't planning to disclose his existence. We need some hard evidence first before we can bring him up, don't we? I guess I'll just have to try a different approach for the time being. I need to review my evidence because I kind of forget what I have. It's been a few days since we were last playing this case. So we got the sports paper with MC Bomber with 100,000 written on it and a scratch. MC Bomber is the virus that Glenn Elg developed to pay for his tremendous debt from being addicted to gambling, I think. Which was $500,000, I think? Magazine clipping. Article from December 5th says I was trounced and my client was found guilty. Imposter Phoenix. Job listings, the bench in Vitamin Square, thrown away by the old man. I don't think that's going to be useful anytime soon. The lunch special, $20 despite how bad it tastes. The scooter, ridden by my phony. The wheel guard is all smashed up. And this guy, Armstrong's loan contract for $500,000. The owner of the loan is Tender Lender, which is owned by the evil imposter Phoenix Wright guy. Victor's testimony, when the incident occurred, I broke the vase at my seat. I'm sorry. That's going to come in handy at some point for some reason. The floor plans, okay. Autopsy report. Between 1:30 and 2:30 via poison. Crime photo. There he is. Passed out on a table. Coffee cup sipped from the front, held by the right hand. We got that evidence. Winning ticket for $500,000 found during a body search of Maggie. Worn by Maggie at the time of the incident, has small pockets but big stains. Potassium cyanide, deadly powdery poison, bears Maggie's fingerprints found in her apron pocket. The victim's prescription bag for his topical ear cream bag was empty. The victim's calendar, meet with the tiger on his December 3rd, day of the murder. That's who he met. The imposter badge from Tender Lender that he used. The MC Bomber disc. The Millionaire Radio flyer. Every Monday at 1:30 p.m. That is precisely when he died, which is a connection. Gumshoe's lunchbox, which really doesn't seem to be important. Viola's medical papers. A $1 million bill for cranial surgery. Payment was due last year. Trebien matches found in the Tender Lender, and then a small bottle, ear medicine, uncovered or found covered in unidentified fingerprints in the kitchen. All right, that's all of our evidence, our profiles. Everyone here, we got Mia, Maya, Godot, Maggie, Victor, Armstrong, Gumshoe, Glenn, Lisa Basil, which was the CEO of Blue Screen Inc., Viola, Cadaverini, granddaughter of Crime Boss. Yeah, this is the Crime Boss, dude. We never see him. We never met him, but he's got this guy in a grip hold, I think. Anyway, now that we've reviewed all of our evidence and stuff, we can keep going in. I just needed to do that for a refresher for myself, and hopefully for you guys. I was experimenting with some new art decor that day. You were experimenting with art deco? How come I never heard about that before today? You are not familiar with the language of interior design, monsieur? Please stay on topic. Now, why didn't you tell the court about this before? But I did. Just a few moments ago.
Ahem. Excuse me, Mr. Armstrong. This deco you mentioned. Are you referring to some sort of decoteur?
No, art deco. Like style of design. Decoration, Your Honor. He's talking about interior design. Walls, ceilings, carpets, that kind of thing.
Yes, of course, that deco.
I was trying to achieve a more la effeminate look for my restaurant. I was planning the most bold remodeling of la decor. Like having a large mirror between la tables, for example. How big of a mirror are we talking here? Ooh, something about 4 meters wide and, about 2 meters high? Let's see, if 1 meter is about 1 yard, holy glass in a frame, that's huge! I was intending to install it on the ceiling eventually. The ceiling? Was there a mirror on the ceiling? I don't remember. Man, no. But I decided not to go through with it in the end. What should I do? Should I ask him more about the mirror or not? Yeah, the mirror is sketchy. If you really had such a large mirror in the restaurant, someone would have noticed it. But there's nothing about a mirror in Mr. Kudo or Maggie Bird's testimonies. But...
You didn't ask, Trite. You have only yourself to blame for such sloppy work.
What?
A mirror was delivered to Trebien the day before the incident.
Really?
As Mr. Armstrong testified, he was carrying out some design changes. And as it turned out, he didn't actually use the mirror in the end.
This just doesn't add up. Even if a mirror was delivered to Trebien, it doesn't prove that it was in the restaurant on the day of the crime.
Ha! If you want to doubt someone, Trite, look in the mirror. I'm sure the person looking back at you will be dubious enough. So the witness yesterday had seen the victim reflected in a mirror.
Oui, perhaps that is what the old man was looking at. Normally, I'd expect people to know the difference between a reflection and a real object.
Normally? How does normality come into this. That's lame trite, even for you.
Huh?
Are you trying to say that if something isn't normal, it isn't possible? Is that it? Where does that leave the porky-headed lawyer and the top-knot chick over there? And the ungodly cool guy with the mask over here? Well, trite.
Ugh, not the hair! I do not have a top knot.
Mr. Godot is correct. A lack of normality is no basis for discounting an argument.
Bien. Logic as one la day. La cup, la earpiece, and la glasses. He would have seen everything in reverse, no? Everything? You would have seen everything in reverse? Oui? Hey, Nick, we should take a second and think about what old CD said in his testimony. How did he phrase it again? The boy was wearing the earpiece in the same side as the green lens of his specs. No question, you can lock me up if I'm wrong. It was his left ear, without a doubt. Oh, nice. They just gave this to me. If you saw everything he described reflected in a mirror, then everything he said on the left was actually on the right, huh? And that clears up all the problems with his testimony, I guess. Or does it? It's kind of hard to believe everything's the fault of a mirror, but... Do you think old CD saw everything through a reflection? If he did, it would explain all the contradictions in his testimony. But that just makes the situation worse for Maggie. There's gotta be something in that old man's testimony. We've just gotta dig deeper. So, I don't have a testimony other than his testimony about breaking the glass to present. Do I present just Glenn? Maybe? Because we just confirmed it was still in his left ear because the old man didn't specify left or right. He said on the same side. And that is clearly his left side. From our perspective... Yeah, whatever, let's try it. Objection! The coffee cup, the earpiece, and the HMD. Let's think back over Mr. Kudo's testimony for a second, shall we? The boy was wearing the earpiece on the same side as the green lens of his specs. Alright. So to summarize, we were told both the HMD and the earpiece were on the victim's left side. Now, if Mr. Kudo saw all of that in a reflection in a mirror, it means that both the HMD and the earpiece were actually on the victim's right side. Exactement. You see, monsieur, now that you think about it, it is not so hard, no? Unfortunately, that's where we run into a monumental contradiction with the facts. If Mr. Kudo really did see everything in a mirror, then why is it that the HMD is now on the wrong side of his head? Huh?
Order! Order in my court! Mr. Wright is correct. If the witness genuinely observed the victim reflected in a mirror, then we would have expected the victim's eyepiece to have been over his right eye. How bitter. Trent, you should have a taste of this bitterness. It'll calm you down in no time.
Are we talking about your coffee or something completely different?
You don't understand the way the witness thinks. How he thinks? You remember this, I presume?
The I broke the vase sorry apology? Mr. Kudo's sworn testimony?
Exactly. The old man has one very grievous habit. Other than throwing seeds. The more of an impression something makes, the more muddled it makes his mind. And what's the most striking thing about Mr. Elg? Clearly, it's the victim's eyepiece. And that's my point! The old man strikes again. Mr. Elg's HMD made a big impression on the old man. I saw the earpiece and those newfangled spectacles he was wearing. Oh yes, they were both in his left ear. Did you hear? His left ear! Well, try.
That's the worst, but best impression of Godot ever. Wow, I really thought he was old Seedy for a minute there. Godot's good.
Enough. I must agree that yesterday's witness was irresponsibly rash in much of his testimony.
Bad luck, Nick. Looks like the boil of a contradiction you just found is a rash.
A mirror can't be beaten by a handful of seeds, nor can it lie. So what exactly was the old man looking at? Fill us in, Mr. Armstrong. Go on. Tell the court. We're all ears.
Oui? I can explain. Please, if you will look at the plans of the restaurant. The mirror. Hello, is everyone sitting comfortably? La mirror, it was in the middle of the restaurant, dividing the two halves. There is only one seat from which you could have seen an image of la victim. That was the seat at the table next to the victims. That was where the old man was sitting. After the terrible incident occurred, I moved the mirror so it would not be in the way. But naturally, I did not touch anything else.
I see no problems with the explanation we have just heard. From the table next to the victims, Mr. Godot could have seen the victim in the mirror.
What a naughty little croquet I am, confusing all the men like this.
Don't worry about it. We can keep up, except for the guy breaking out in a cold sweat over there again.
I hate that guy!
You said you didn't touch anything else apart from the mirror. Are you quite sure about that?
Volunteers, of course.
Very well. Mr. Wright, your cross-examination, if you please.
La mirror, it was in the middle of the restaurant, dividing the two halves. There is only one seat from which you could have seen the image of the victim, and that was a seat right next to the victims. That was where the old man was sitting. Okay. After that terrible incident occurred. Okay, so he moved the mirror so it was not in the way, and he claims it's the only thing he moved. Did not touch anything else. We have this small bottle being found in his kitchen, which was the topical ear cream, and we also know that he stole a lottery ticket at another point from the table. Now here's the thing though. According to the testimony, Victor was sitting in the far left of this image. But in Victor's testimony, he also apologized for breaking the vase. Now, this vase is not broken, ergo, the mirror has to be a contradiction. Yes, the mirror, it was in the middle of the restaurant, dividing the two halves. There were only one seat from which you could have seen an image of the victim. That was the seat next to the victims. That's where the old man was sitting. This is good evidence. This is solid evidence. I feel good about this one. Present the crime photo on this one. I feel good about that. This piece of evidence contradicts with the testimony we have heard, Your Honor.
The crime photo?
Yes, this photo clearly shows something that theoretically should not exist.
What on earth do you mean by that, Mr. Wright?
Should not exist? Sounds like you're describing yourself, Trite.
Now then, if the defense would please clarify its statement. What is the something that should not exist in this photo?
I think it's pretty obvious that this is what should not be in the picture.
The vase? What possible connection does that have with the witness's testimony?
Your Honor, I'm telling you that there should have been no vase on this table. Because it very clearly contradicts with this piece of evidence. There is one thing that was clearly demonstrated by yesterday's testimony. Mr. Kudo broke the vase that was sitting on the table where he was. And yet, as the court can see, there is an unbroken vase on the table next to the victim. Why? Because Mr. Kudo was not, in fact, sitting at the table next to the victim at all.
Don't be an idiot, Trite. That's impossible. That seat's the only one Kudo could have seen from the victim's reflection.
Exactly. There's only one conclusion we can draw from this contradiction. There was no mirror in Trebien that day. Your testimony, Mr. Armstrong, is an elaborate lie. Mon Dieu!
Don't try to confuse the court, Trite. Obviously, the witness cleared up the vase, while the police were taking their time getting to the crime scene.
Unfortunately, Mr. Godot, that doesn't quite work for me. Mr. Armstrong already testified to the contrary. In his own words, I did not touch anything else except the mirror.
Well, witness, what do you have to say for yourself?
I was right. There was no mirror in the restaurant that day.
In light of this revelation, we return back to our original problem. Why did the victim have an earpiece in an ear from which he couldn't hear?
You only get one shot in life. There's no turning back. If you want to claim that the mirror wasn't there, Trite, then this problem is all yours. How do you explain what the old man saw?
If I can answer this, then I'll be that much closer to the truth. I can feel it. Are you going to be okay? Can you really solve this contradiction, Nick? There's more than just this one contradiction, Maya. What do you mean? Remember what Maggie told us? There was another man at the victim's table, and there was a sample CD on the victim's table. It all files in the face of Mr. Kudo's testimony. And I think I know the reason why nothing in this case is adding up.
Well, Mr. Wright, let's hear your answer.
Yes, Your Honor. The reason behind all the contradictions in Mr. Kudo's testimony is simple. Oh. Mr. Kudo made a mistake, which, the ear doctor made a mistake. The victim was a phony? The victim was a phony? I don't think the answer we're trying to give is Mr. Kudo made a mistake. I think we're gonna go with the victim being a phony. This case is riddled with contradictions, yet there's one very simple answer that clears them all up.
And what is that?
The incident Mr. Kudo witnessed and the incident the victim experienced were two completely different events.
What?
Yes, the victim that Mr. Kudo saw wasn't Mr. Glenn Elg at all. It was an imposter, a phony pretending to be Mr. Elg. Obviously, unlike the victim, there was nothing wrong with the imposter's left eardrum. That's how he ended up wearing the earpiece in his left ear by mistake. I don't have evidence to prove that, though. I love Godot.
Order! Order in the court! Settle down or I'll clear the courtroom.
Quiet, Gramps. Why don't you clear out of here, huh?
What did you just say?
Trite, are you saying that what Mr. Kudo saw was a setup?
Yes. Someone pretended to be Mr. Glenn Elg and acted out the whole coffee poisoning. All for the express purpose of creating a witness out of one Mr. Victor Kudo.
get real trite. Why would anyone want to do that?
Isn't it obvious? The thing Mr. Kudo was most insistent about in his testimony was the servant girl brought him a Javachino, but she put something in it. That's the servant girl, right? There in the defendant's chair. I remember her well. Yibbity yobbity you.
It's so hard to believe, but
There was one and only one reason to show Mr. Kudo this fake poisoning. To show Maggie Bird in the act of poisoning the coffee.
Are you insinuating that the waitress, the old man's story, was a fake as well? It's true that there were no other customers in the restaurant at the time, but it's also true that the chef was there. He would have noticed what was happening.
that's right. Well, witness, if your restaurant really was the scene of such theatrics, you would have known about it, correct?
Ooh la la! This is most difficult for me. No. It's quite simple. All you have to do is testify. You're under oath after all. Was there, in fact, a phony at Trebian that day? The defense demands that Mr. Armstrong tell the whole truth about what happened. I'm sorry for screaming so loud.
The defense's request for additional testimony is accepted. You will accurately explain, in detail, the events in the restaurant that day.
Oui. In the restaurant. Exactly. Can't whisper a demand. La victime, Monsieur Elg. He came to my restaurant alone. I remember the old man arrived not long after him. There were no other customers. When he got word he won... When he got word he won la lottery, Mon Elg became very excited. It was approximately 5 minutes later that the poisoning incident occurred. No, there was no time for a phony to do la acting.
Just so we're clear, there was no mirror in the restaurant after all.
Je vous demande pardon. Forgive me, Your Honor. I lied because I want this mess to be cleared up quickly.
What you have just done is commit perjury, Mr. Armstrong, and I will decide how to punish you later.
Oui.
For now, we will hear your cross-examination, Mr. Wright.
He took that perjury charge a bit too well, but I'm guessing he'll be in a bit more serious trouble after this cross-examination. Okay. La victime, Monsieur Elg, he came to my restaurant alone. I'm gonna get as much info as I can right now. Was he alone at his table as well? Mais oui. I saw him from la kitchen. Yet the defendant, Miss Bird, remembers it differently. She swears there was another man at the victim's table.
Heh! Unfortunately for you, Trite, yesterday's witness also testified that the victim was alone. You know, seeing you squirm like that reminds me of a certain coffee's bittersweet bite.
What kind of coffee has he been drinking? It's not coffee, it's love. It's love that's bittersweet. Hearing Maya say that makes her seem wise all of a sudden. I remember the old man arrived not long after him. By old you mean Victor Kudo, correct? Oui, he comes often for my special coffee.
I drank your coffee once, Mr. Armstrong. It's special. I'll give you that. It's worth a sip just for the experience.
Oh, you make me so happy, monsieur. You're most welcome anytime.
I said it was worth one sip and nothing more.
So old Mr. Kudo arrived at the restaurant around the same time as the victim. Maybe I should ask about his arrival in more detail. Maybe we should. We should ask for the time? I want to check some info. We know the victim died between 1:30 and 2:30. The poisoning took place at about 1:30. What time was it? Give me that. Out of curiosity, about what time was it when Mr. Kudo arrived? Oh no, I cannot remember, monsieur.
I believe we were told by a witness yesterday.
The crime was reported at 2:25 p.m. by a kind of scary old man, sir.
Does that perhaps jog your memory, witness?
La incident happened about 20 minutes after he arrived. So la victim must have arrived between 2 p.m. and 2:10, no? Just after 2, huh? Thank you for your help in jogging my memory, monsieur. You are wonderful.
I can't sit here all the time and do nothing, can I? The time of the day will be added to the witness's testimony.
Oui, monsieur judge. Everything I do for you. Merci bien.
Merci bien. That's French, isn't it?
I'm glad at least one person is in a good mood. He's even humming a song to himself. Just after 2 p.m. Just after 2 p.m. Hold on a second. Yeah, okay. But if he arrived after 2 p.m., because... Hold on, 1 second. There was no other customers. When he got word he won the lottery, Mr. Mon-Elg became very excited. It was approximately 5 minutes later that the poisoning incident occurred. So, the poisoning incident had to occur sometime a little... The poisoning incident had to occur a little bit before... How long does cyanide take? Does it say? As long as it would take for cyanide to kick in. Between 1:30 and 2:30. That sounds like a lovely afternoon, Kevin. Tell Amber I said hi and I love her. But died of potassium cyanide poisoning between 1:30 and 2:30. If homie got in at 2 p.m., the witness... Hold on. I should probably be reading this, but I already have... I want to reread that real quick. Hold on. I guess Mr. Armstrong is connected to this case, huh? Absolutely. Someone was impersonating Mr. Elg, and I refuse to believe he was oblivious. He was there the whole time, after all. But if you're right, wouldn't Maggie have noticed too? She fell unconscious when the incident occurred, remember? Oh, you mean that's when the phony staged his act? We'll know for sure once I find a hole in his testimony. So yeah, what I'm saying here is... Bam. At 1:30 every Monday. We have a hard contradiction here because it can't have been after 2 p.m. if the witness, if Mr. Mr. Old Guy was there to witness him jumping up and cheering from winning. It has to be, this has to be our evidence. Yeah. I'm afraid I finally got you, Mr. Armstrong. Quoi? What do you mean? At the time in question, the victim was listening to the radio with his earpiece. The show he was listening to was Millionaire Radio. Each week, they announced the winning number of a $500,000 lottery ticket. Oui, that must be la show mon Elg was listening to.
I can't see any problems with that testimony, Mr. Wright.
I wonder. You say the victim arrived at your restaurant after 2 p.m., correct? Oui, I am sure of it. I remember it perfectly now. I know it was that time because I had just finished serving the lunch menu.
Get to the point, straight. If you have one.
That show is broadcast live at 1:30 p.m. and it claims to be the most thrilling 10 minutes of your life.
It's on the air at 1:30?
Now, supposedly, the victim made some noise when it was announced that he had won. And yet, I don't believe his cry of joy could have occurred after 2 p.m. because the show had already finished more than 30 minutes earlier by that point in time. No! This victim we've been told about has done nothing but the impossible. Listening to the radio with a ruptured eardrum, catching a show that was already over, there is one conclusion that you can draw from these facts, and that is that this victim was an imposter, acting out the poisoning 30 minutes after the real murder. Yes, there were two Glen Elgs in Trebian that day. The real Glen Elg, now dead by having been poisoned by the real killer, and the phony Glen Elg acting out the events for Mr. Godot to witness.
It certainly seems that way. I mean, if that wasn't the case, how could you explain the time discrepancy?
Quite a performance, Trite. You were almost on a roll. But sadly, you lack the rock-hard foundation of rhythm to build your song.
What is this? Music Theory 101?
Let's recap. According to your imaginative theory, it is now just after 2 p.m. That phony Elg is performing a play for the benefit of Mr. Godot. How do you explain then where the real Glen Elg is?
I don't believe I have to spell this out for the court. However, at that time, the real Glen Elg was already dead.
That's certainly the obvious conclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trite. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say.
What?
Now, I presume you can prove this theory of yours? Can you explain where the missing corpse went to?
The missing corpse?
According to the old man's testimony, there was only one other customer there. If that customer was the phony Glen Elg, then where did the killer hide the body of the real victim?
The prosecution has a valid point, Mr. Wright. If your theory is to stand up to extermination by the court, you must provide us with proof by answering the prosecution's questions. Where did the killer hide the body?
Yes, Your Honor.
No conjecture, Trite. Let's hear some facts for once. Show the court a piece of evidence that proves the body was hidden.
Evidence? What's with the intense pressure in here all of a sudden? I thought I had him with that contradiction. Excuse me. But he's turned it all around and backed me into a corner instead.
Well, Mr. Wright, the court will now hear the defense's theory and evidence. First, where was the body of the real Mr. Elg concealed?
How am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know the answer to that? Could have been in the kitchen, I guess. I'm gonna say inside Trebian. It would have to be too dangerous to take the body outside. Obviously, the body must have been hidden somewhere inside Trebian.
Interesting. But where could a body have been hidden inside a restaurant? Perhaps you would care to show the court on these plans, Mr. Wright?
Yes, Your Honor. The exact location where the body was concealed inside Trebian is, I'm gonna say, the kitchen. It literally can't be anywhere else. The body was hidden here.
I see.
Nice supposition, but the real question is, can you back it up? Where's the evidence that proves the body was hidden in that location?
God. Okay. This! It's this! It's this! Mr. Armstrong, do you recognize this bottle? No, I have never seen that ugly bottle in my life before. I only used la very best bottles, monsieur. The highest quality only for me.
Where was that bottle found, Mr. Wright?
Interestingly enough, Your Honor, it was found in the kitchen of Très Bien.
Oh?
Oh, quoi? But I only ever use these bottles for my aromatherapy oils. But this bottle doesn't contain aromatherapy oil, Mr. Armstrong. No. It contains a medication.
What kind of medication?
Well, I'm sure everyone remembers, don't they, that Mr. Elg visited an otolaryngological clinic and was given medication that day. 10 out of 10 pronunciation.
You can't be serious.
The defense had the contents of this bottle analyzed, and I have the lab results here. The contents of the bottle match the prescription that was given to Mr. Elg. Glenn Elg's murderer hid the body in the restaurant kitchen, at which time this bottle fell out of the victim's pocket. Mr. Armstrong, when the incident occurred, didn't you say that you were in the kitchen? Mon Dieu? Yeah, you know what I'm about to say. It was you who hid the victim's body. And you did a fine job pretending to defend my client, Maggie Bird. However, you were setting her up to take the fall behind that poor girl's back. Oh.
Order! Whoa. This is an extraordinary development. Witness, did you murder Mr. Glenn Elg?
Never! I could never do such an horrible thing. No! Mr. Godot?
The bitterness. Every time I get lied to, I always down a mug of coffee. That's one of my rules.
Do you have the slightest idea how many cups you've had by now?
Then, I'd like to do the same to the person who lied to me. I'd like to take them down with my empty cup. Listen up, chef. How about a brand new flavor in your ear, my H-deficit friend?
Je vous demande pardon. Please, you must hear me out. It is a trap. Listen to me, por favor. Por favor. They just totally switched the spit.
Ah, yo hablo español, Mr. Armstrong, and por favor is Spanish.
I'm only going to ask you once. Did you do it?
No, absolutely no. I
Let's hear it. You've got one shot, right, Gramps?
Witness, the court will permit you the chance to make one final statement. If you lie under oath again, Mr. Godot's coffee mug awaits you, as does my gavel.
It is clear. What do they always say in the movies? Got a bad feeling about this.
Very well. Bring your final testimony, Mr. Armstrong.
The confession. It is true. I hid the body in the kitchen. A man forced me to do it. I had no choice. I had to go along with him because there was a reason why I could not refuse. But I did not kill him. I swear it. You must believe me.
You were forced? By who?
I cannot say, or I will be erased. Let's try a different question then. When Mr. Elk died, was he really the only person at his table? There was. Yes. There was another man. I knew it! Maggie was telling the truth!
You may cross-examine the witness now, Mr. Wright.
There's just one more thing I need to do. I gotta break this guy and get him to tell us the name of the real killer. It is true. I hid the body in the kitchen. Did you carry the body by yourself? Oui, I carried him, and I carried Maggie too. Maggie too? Oh. When she saw la victim collapse, she fainted. I could not leave her there.
But why did you hide the bodies?
A man forced me to do it. I had no choice. What man? Who was he?
No, I cannot say, for I fear for my life.
He really is scared. You'll just have to put the words in his mouth, Nick. Yeah, you're right. If you won't tell me, I'll tell him.
But why would you go along with this man?
I had to go along with him because there was a reason why I could not refuse. Right here. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Go! Go! You have a $500,000 debt, don't you?
$500,000? Is this true, Mr. Armstrong?
Oui. Je suis désolé. I was weak and I borrowed the money. This is Mr. Armstrong's Achilles heel. And that's why you couldn't refuse anything asked of you by this man. Going for it. A $500,000 loan from a black market loan shark. And you had no way of paying it back, did you? That's why you were forced to do anything this man told you. It is as you say, Mr. Armstrong. Le Tigre. He told me he was going to use my business for my restaurant for a business rendezvous. On the day in question, he was meeting la victim to demand that he repay his loan. I don't know why it happened like that. I just did what he told me to do. I had no choice. I carried la body and la inconscient Maggie out of the dining area and into the kitchen. After that, I just tried to forget what I had seen. I think we can now safely say that the man who forced your hand was Mr. Furio Tigre.
I do have one further question for you, Mr. Armstrong. The poison and the lottery ticket were recovered from the defendant's apron pocket. Was that your doing as well?
No, I knew nothing about that. Making it look like it was Maggie who had done it. I was not involved. It was despicable. Thanks, Trainer Troy.
Mr. Godot, you will summon this Furio Tigre as a witness. I doubt that can be arranged today, so we will adjourn for now. Proceedings will continue tomorrow.
Ready?
30 minutes.
What?
The trial will go on. I'll see to it myself. I just need half an hour to get that guy on the stand. Not a minute more.
How the...
Don't sit back and relax yet, Shrite. No one knows if that chef is really telling the truth or not. This trial could still go either way.
Very well. Your request is granted, Mr. Godot. We will resume once Mr. Tigre is ready to take the stand. Until then, court is adjourned for a 30-minute recess.
Wow. Hot first day of trial. We have cleared up so much, proving that there was a staged performance of the murder. We now have the connection. We now have decisive evidence that is proven that, almost without a doubt, that Mr. Armstrong's telling the truth about all this. I think we're in a solid Congratulations!